Everybody that's joining us just now, and thank you for joining the second day of the 2020 Aberdeen Norway Gateway. It's our 7th annual Norway Gateway and our first year that we have gone digital. So huge thanks to everyone that joined yesterday, and thanks also to those that are with us again today. So we've just got quite a lot of people coming in just now and joining us. So thanks for giving up your time. If you could please just all make sure that your speaker is on mute. And we'll just have the speaker actually on at the time. But if you need to ask a question, or you'd like to ask a question, or you'd like to send a message to the other participants, please pop it in the chat, and we will come back to them at the Q&A at the end. So, so we stick to time. We're going to get started because I know there'll be people joining us throughout. So to set the scene for day 2 of this Aberdeen Norway Gateway, I'd like to introduce once again the Lord Provost of Aberdeen, who is also currently the President of the World Energy City Partnership. So Lord Provost, over to you.
Thanks very much for that, Brett, and thanks everybody for coming along. I think we had a very good day yesterday, some very interesting presentations, and a great deal has come out of that. I'm pleased to say we got some press coverage, including a rather nice photograph of the Lord Provost there. So well done to everybody who's responsible for all of that. But I think really it did open people's eyes a lot to the world that's going to be changing. I think we're going to have more of that today. And certainly from our point of view, Aberdeen sees itself as the most Norway-aware part of the UK. We are intimately linked to Norway, and every step that we take, you know, we're keen to keep up those links and to strengthen them all the time. I think that people are aware that international relations are changing quite quickly, but the relations between Aberdeen and Norway, I hope, will be a totally stable part of that. And I'm looking forward to, you know, hearing more about that today. I think Aberdeen is unusual in that it's a very low public sector orientation, and that maybe adds some interest to some of the topics today when we're speaking about the introduction of technology, because the drive here is very strong, with it being mainly, overwhelmingly, in fact, a private sector dominated city. I think amongst the interesting things we heard yesterday was a presentation from the UK ambassador, which I think really made a big impact on the people here based in the UK, and I'm sure also for people in Norway, about how strong the government drive is towards green energy and awareness of the importance of the imports of energy that we all have. I think certainly there was a lot of learning from me in that. And again, I'm looking forward very much to hearing the presentations and take part in the questions and answers at the end. So again, once again, thank you to Brett, and thanks to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Lord Provost, and for setting the scene on day 2 of the 2020 Aberdeen Norway Gateway. I'd like to introduce our in-association partner for this event. And without further ado, go to our first speaker today, which is Kira Haugen. And Kira is the General Manager of the NBCC, the Norwegian British Chamber of Commerce, based here in the UK. Kira, over to you, sir.
Now you can hear me, yeah. So thank you very much, Brett, and thanks to Stacey for organizing this very interesting. And although we have the COVID, the world is not going under, so it's good to see so many attending here. Next, Stacey. Yeah. So just briefly about Norwegian trade, Norway-UK trade. So the total trade between Norway and the UK last year was £26.3 billion. It's a lot of money. Predominantly, it's oil and gas from the Norwegian side, but it's significant, whatever industry. Next, please. The UK export to Norway is machinery, it's services and so on. Just a little background information there. So please, next one. So the NBCC, we are 114 years, so 115 next year. And it was founded in 1906 after the dissolution of the union between Norway and Sweden. It was founded by business leaders and the Norwegian government together to promote bilateral trade and to facilitate relationships in the business communities, and that is still the case today. So it's an old animal, but it's still the same kind of tones. Next, please. So our job, the NBCC purpose. This is something new we have been working on this year. So we have reshaped the Chamber of Commerce a little bit, and we have a new purpose. And it is promoting trade between Britain and Norway. It is to connect businesses and resources and people. And we want to facilitate relationships with the business communities. And it's all about creating value for members and national economies. We are part of a value chain and we need to deliver value. So we are working on that, and I will touch into that a little bit later. So next, please, Stacey. We are a part of Team Norway. It's a 4 parts. It's the Embassy, Innovation Norway, the same as DIT, and the Norwegian Seafood Council. We are an equal partner there. So we are the only non-profit organization. So we are working with bureaucracies. So a little bit headache from time to time, but we are doing a good job together. We really are. Next, please. We are, as of today, 95 corporate members, and we are growing. We had about 22 new members this year in the COVID time, so it's we are quite satisfied with that. About 50-50 Norwegian, Nordic international headquarters, and then about 30% of our businesses are headquartered in London, and the rest predominantly in Aberdeen and some Edinburgh. Next, please. We represent a rather diverse set of sectors, as you see here. We have been seen as the energy chamber, which is natural, I presume, taking the link with the oil and gas, but we are diversifying. It's important. We are a chamber for all sectors. Next. This is new. So we have for many years had Equinor as the only premier partner on top. Last week, DNV-GL, they decided to join Equinor on our top level, and that means a lot to us financially, but also more importantly on the event side. DNV-GL, they will participate on the broad and deep level, and the same will Equinor. So you will see some good changes in the types of events we will have next year. So I'm very proud of having 2 Norwegian locomotives like this with us as sparring partners and partners. Next, just this overview of the other partner members we have. Burness Paul and PTC have been with us for ages as well. They are based up in Aberdeen, and the rest are based in London, but some of them are well known. DNB, Danske Bank, Goodwill, and so on. Next, please. Moving forward, past and present has been Aberdeen and London, but now we are looking at increasing our UK footprint to include Edinburgh, the Central Belt, and Glasgow, northeast of England, northwest, and basically regions where you have a UK Norwegian activities, business activities. We are a business chamber for the whole of Britain, not only London. Next. And by doing this, how can we do this? And we do that by the network partner model, both in the UK and in Norway, to sign MOUs and do activities with regional and national clusters and Chamber of Commerce. And that is in line with the more diversified chamber we are doing. Next, please. On the event side, we have a new concept, the Opportunities Platform. It's a joint Team Norway effort. There will be sector-specific conferences, and there are collaboration with industrial locomotives like DNVGL, Equinor, but also other Aker Group, Statkraft, DNB, and so on, the big Norwegian corporations. We are starting a business-to-business matchmaking events together with these opportunities, because that is how we can actually create and be part of the value chain to create value for our members and the business community. And we want to do that UK-wide. So we have joint events together with other Chamber of Commerces and other relevant organizations. Next. And for the opportunities 2021, that's the first one. It was supposed to be in March, it's postponed to May. That is a blue and green subjects put together. So everything about environmental products and services on land and sea. So aquaculture, energy transition, hydrogen, shipping and maritime, circular solutions and technologies, sustainable city life as well. In partnership, so that shouldn't be there, but that is in partnership with a lot of organizations. Next. The other one, we're going to have ICT opportunities with IKT Norge. It's a lobby organization for all the ICT businesses in Norway, and also any sectors with relevant UK Norwegian trade. We're going to set up this. Next, please. I'm coming to the end, and I'm just saying we are severely hit by COVID-19 as everybody else, and we are in a transition phase, but we are making progress, and we want to make a difference for our members and for our partners, and we want feedback and suggestions, and we want to engage. Thank you for listening. I think I was too quick.
Kira, that's fine. Thank you very much for that presentation. And just to say to everyone in the session that you know, Granite PR is a member of the Chamber, yeah. And you know, I would encourage other businesses in Aberdeen and throughout the UK and beyond to consider speaking to you about doing the same. And I know you'll be available for questions at the end.
I will, and I should have mentioned it before. And Brett has been member for years and years and years, so he's happy.
I'm delighted, and I'm pleased to have you here today to share the story. So thanks for that, Kira.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our second speaker today, and Ewan from Stronach, Ewan Nielsen from Stronach, is head of energy at Stronach, and he's also a partner with the firm, and he's for many years worked in the energy sector in both the North Sea, the Norwegian Sea, and throughout the globe. So Ewan, without further ado, I'd like to ask you to take the stage and say a bit more, please.
Thank you very much, Brett. Thank you everyone for listening, and thank you for Stronach being a partner in this. So just a few words, first of all, about Stronach, if we can turn the next page. Stronach has been based in Aberdeen for over 200 years. Some people say back to the 18th century. So we've been here a long time, but have offices in Aberdeen, London, and Inverness, connected through the country. We're a boutique international law firm in that we do a lot of international work in Norway and other parts of the oil sectors across the world. Disciplines: energy, corporate, employment, HSE, dispute resolution, private client, and commercial property. We've got an upstream team involved in different upstream activities, but we also do a lot of technology. We're a small firm, we're about 110 people, and we have our own publishing company. Next page, please. So today I thought I'd talk about the times changing and the cost of capital, which affects things in Norway as well as in the UK. The thing that struck me this week was that ExxonMobil was a member of the Dow Jones Industrial Average Index in 1928, and it came off the index on Monday. leaving Chevron as the only oil company on the index. That was a tremendous change, but a change that was building up over time. So we see at the moment, in my view, energy transition has been happening for a number of years, but it's building change, and the effect of COVID has accelerated that change. From an investor's perspective, I'm looking particularly at the cost of capital. Change started happening 1 or 2 years ago, but again, that change is being accelerated at the moment. But the big influence on that change is also the insurance markets. If you can't insure an activity offshore, you can't do it. And many risks are becoming uninsured these days. So the final factor is energy prices. As everyone knows, gas and oil prices have been hit very hard. But the question is, what's going to happen in the future? Next slide, please. So times are changing. It's really about the new energy industries. They're here to stay, and they're gathering up speed. Particularly in Norway and the United Kingdom, hydrogen, both green and blue, being important, and blue in terms of carbon capture, underground storage, and CCS. These are the future industries, along with offshore wind, tidal, solar biomass. So what I was trying to discuss a little bit later on is the effect of these changes in both Norway and the United Kingdom. Next slide, please. So the events that are driving change are increasing, e.g. GHG emissions. Now they've fallen tremendously this year, but they did that in 2009 and they reasserted themselves. But also the changing chemistry of the ocean, which is a substantial climate change effect. So we see rising sea levels, which are going to affect both Norway and UK and Aberdeen. That has an effect on the cost of insurance, and that is an unseen market to most people, but that's a very important market for energy. Investor sentiment has changed a lot, driven by what people investing into the funds want to see. In particular, tar sands, heavy oil, coal and nuclear are being fairly hard hit. But also in Norway and the North Sea, we're seeing a reduction in cost by acceleration of demanning of offshore infrastructure, people coming off platforms, people coming off FPSOs, increased use of big data, automation and robots, and that is only going to increase in the future. But one of the really big changes that's going on that's not often known is that wind and solar in particular are operating without subsidies across the world in most cases, and they have low costs of CapEx and OpEx that are now challenging oil and gas. Next slide, please. The next big change, the US elections. If you start to look at Joe Biden's 20 trillion green energy plan, that will hit shale oil and gas very hard versus Trump market focus. These are going to be tremendous changes because last year, the US was the biggest oil and gas producer in the world, I believe. So we might see huge change on price in effect. The other big change is obviously Sino-US trade relationships have hit global trade hard. We can't avoid the subject of national popular politics. I'm not going to say anything about the UK at the moment, nor can we avoid climate change politics. But these have tremendous effects on supply chain. And these are things that we all need to consider in Norway and the UK. So the effect on investors and the cost of capital are for pure oil and gas. There's quite a big discount on new projects. Projects are still being done. There'll be oil and gas for a long time, but they'll be changed. And for especially long dated projects, those might suffer most. Next slide, please. Price of energy always counts. At the moment, we're seeing historically very low natural gas prices. That may affect the energy transition going forward, but it may not. The oil price is well documented, but the question is, where is it going in the future? BP Total have reported that they're taking a fairly conservative view, not seeing it going above $60 a barrel for Brent going forward for some years. But with China demand increasing, Rystad maybe take a different view, seeing oil price going up. But natural gas prices are decoupling from oil prices for the first time. And again, to emphasize, the cost of putting renewable offshore in the water is reducing year on year on year. So in comes hydrogen. And hydrogen isn't just new, it's been done as grey hydrogen for a number of years. But there are huge plans for green hydrogen and blue hydrogen, both in Norway and UK. And that's a really exciting technology development for all offshore companies in the future. One final thing about US fossil fuels. Like some other countries, I didn't realize that the US actually subsidized their fossil fuels to a huge extent. So the effect of a Joe Biden change may be very substantial in the future. Next slide, please. Investors in energy. So in my view, it's not just governments and people driving change, it's actually investors. Investors' cost of capital, the amount they want returned, will be much higher for ordinary oil and gas projects in the future, as opposed to those adopting climate change mitigation effects. And that has to be taken into account in any future projects going forward. The expectation on return on oil and gas is not only to have a quick return, but a much higher rate of return than renewables. That may change investment into US shale operators. Something like 57 US oil and gas companies have gone into Chapter 11 in the first few months of this year. And about 157, according to Rystad Energy recently, could go into Chapter 11 by the end of this year, unless the price of oil increases above $50 a barrel. So what does that mean? That means rebalancing portfolios, and some investors are now demanding that IOCs rebalance now. It's not just an excuse. They want to see action, and if there's no action, their share prices are being discounted. So you've seen big change with BP, and you've also seen some change with Equinor as well. So technology stocks are really interesting at the moment. On the NASDAQ, if you invested into Kodak a few months ago, it would be $2 to $3 a stock, and it suddenly jumped to $36 a stock when they started doing PPE and getting involved in medical care. So private versus capital markets. Most of our capital in the West, 90% of it for energy, comes from the private sector, whether private or capital. So those are the markets that will affect us in the future. But they're also driven by ECG, environmental, social, and governance attitudes and codes. Next slide, please. So the energy transition is hugely important. There's a European Green Deal 2020, a 30-year project that is coming into effect, and it means to bring in zero carbon and sustainable systems throughout Europe. But it's also going to affect all of us doing business in Europe. So it doesn't just affect companies, people with headquarters in Europe, it affects us all. In the United States, we've seen 30 US states adopt quite aggressive renewable portfolio standards, which are being upped all the time. So change is happening there as well. In the UK, we put into law net zero carbon emissions by 2050. But to get there, we need to make big changes now. And the interesting thing about putting things into law is that there'll be litigation going forward, and you can see that in the States just starting. So in the UK, the Industrial Energy Transition Fund UK budget just been set up, 800 million. And then just turning to the IEA based in Paris, put out a lot of reports at the moment, very interesting. They're saying the next 3 years, there's huge opportunity for change. And that opportunity will be grasped by investors and governments and policymakers. So their recommendation is that change from natural gas and LNG into that, and in particular hydrogen, and a switch from coal to gas. Next slide, please. I'm not an expert on Norwegian energy transition, so I don't feel this is my subject, but I've been reading up about it. A huge amount is being invested in Norway and CCS plants, in clean hydrogen from natural gas. The government is investing enormous amounts of money in research, and that's an opportunity for UK technology companies as well as Norwegian technology companies. In 2023, oil and gas companies are investing 700 million into CO2 storage in Norway by 2024. That is subject to public sector investment. And in Norway, there's high-speed passenger ferries and the Gassnova project, which is, Norwegian Technology Institute. So we see a lot of investment in our energy industry in the UK from private Norwegian funds and also Equinor, but equally there's an opportunity for UK supply chain into Norway to develop their technologies. Next slide, please. I put this up because there is going to be legal challenges on what exactly does net carbon, zero carbon footprint mean. Increasingly, as countries bring this into law, there's going to be a lot of secondary legislation, a lot of discussions by what do we mean by emissions, because in fact, green renewable energy still emits carbon. So there's a lot of work for lawyers, legislators, policymakers in those areas. In the United Kingdom, COVID has brought in great change. It's probably been planned before, but OGA, our agency that regulates the UK upstream industry, considers maximizing economic recovery as being part of transition to net zero, and that for those operators and other tier 1 companies operating in the UK, they have to take into account the mitigation of carbon dioxide by way of carbon storage or hydrogen or some other method. So this is actually the consultation papers and consultation exercise that's now been carried out. We're expecting that to come into law soon, and we're expecting to see quite a large change for us all working in the UK in the next few years. Next slide, please.
No problem, and just to let you know, that's almost at time.
Okay, I'll just go quickly. So environmental, social and governance is coming into law, and I'll take the bottom bullet point. ExxonMobil was taken to court by the Attorney General in New York for misrepresentation about its accounting of carbon prices. Now, that was a criminal action. It got defeated, but you can see that we're all in a position that we need to look at these issues in the future. Next slide, please. So the way forward is in UK, Norway, hydrogen. It's an energy mix for us all. And the interesting thing are the big projects in the UK taking place. 2 of those projects, H21 and Teesside Net Zero project, heavily involve Equinor. And we see Equinor as being a big investor in the UK going forward. So that's a big plus for us. But these 3 projects will link up hydrogen, both green and blue in the UK. And final slide, please. So we think there's a big surprise for supply chains in Norway and the UK in technology, in hydrogen, CCS and integrated renewables. And it's really by the adoption of new technologies and new CapEx spend on these new assets, and those companies adopting new business strategies. So we think being in tune with what investors want and what government policies want is all about the future. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Ewan, for that fascinating picture of the ever-evolving situation we find ourselves in. A real mix of opportunities there moving forward, I think, for us all to address and explore. Okay, I'd like to move on to our next speaker now, and I'm delighted to have our good friends from Widerøe with us once again. And I would like to introduce Håkon to just give us an update. It's obviously been a rather different world in the world of aviation, and I know this will be interesting to hear what's been happening. Hakan, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you, Brett, and also thank you, Stacey, for organizing this event. Yes, as you said, I had the pleasure to attend the event last year, and I'm very happy that you were able to organize it as a in a digital format. However, networking is about meeting people physically, so I really hope that we can see each other next year in Aberdeen. My industry is, we depend on meeting people, flying people for meetings, so hopefully we will be able to do that next year. Aberdeen is a very important destination for Widerøe and for the oil and gas industry. So in fact, we were the only airline flying between not only Aberdeen, Norway, but between the UK and Norway. So it was crucial for the whole industry that we were able to fly, not only for passenger transport, but also for the cargo segment. It was quite critical during those weeks. So next slide, please. I will talk a little bit about Widerøe, for those of you who don't know us that well. I will also go through our operation at Aberdeen and also our connections in Norway. I will then move forward with some information about underground services. And I will also give an update on how the COVID-19, the impact the COVID-19 have on the Norwegian airline industry and Widerøe as well. So next slide, please. Well, Widerøe, we are the oldest airline in Norway. We are in fact 86 years old. We were founded back in 1934 by 3 aviation pioneers. But by that time, only one of them had a telephone. So they decided that, well, it could be useful to have a phone when we were starting up an airline. So that was the reason why we are named Widerøe, because the guy with the phone, his name was Viggo Widerøe. So that has been our name since 1934. We normally, I say normally, not right now, but normally fly more than 400 daily departures. Most of them within Norway, but we also have 8 international destinations as well. Next slide, please. Our fleet contains of 44 aircrafts. The majority is Bombardier Dash 8 aircrafts. The smallest one is 39 seats, mainly operates in the short track airports mostly in the northern and western part of Norway. And we also, 3 years ago, we invested in 3 regional jets, Embraer E190, which among other airports, we also fly on the Aberdeen route. Next slide, please. So this is our timetable on Aberdeen. We have we had 2 daily round trips to Bergen and also to Stavanger. So this means that we go out every morning, which gives the passenger possibility to have daily trips without expensive overnight stays. And we also have, we didn't fly on Saturday, but we also have put some one round trip to Bergen on the Saturday as well. Next slide, please. Our main hub is Bergen, and we have 19 direct connections to and from Bergen, most of them within Norway, but we also have operation to Gothenburg, Hamburg, Munich, and Liverpool as well. And we go as far as up to Tromsø in the far northern part of Norway, which is also my hometown. So I'm very happy about that. And next slide, please. And from all these destinations, we cover more or less the whole country. We fly almost on every corner in Norway. We are in fact flying on every airport in Norway. And many of the oil and gas operators have to go up as far as, for instance, to Hammerfest, which is far north in Finnmark, and we have good connections via Tromsø to Hammerfest, also to Brønnøysund, to Kristiansund, and we have a lot of very good connections to and from Bergen. Next slide, please. And we have also launched access for on every airport that we fly on, if there is a launch there. We are, in fact, the only airline who have launches, give our passenger lounge access in Aberdeen when we fly to and from Norway, and Stavanger as well. And there are also domestic lounges throughout Norway, Bergen, Tromsø, Trondheim, Ålesund, and of course Oslo. Next slide, please. And also fast track to make the trip smooth as possible. We also have, of course, access for the Flex and Eurobonus Gold and Diamond members. Free access to fast track also in Bergen and Stavanger. So next slide, please. This is quite interesting because, and now I'm going into the COVID-19 impact. In March and April, Widerøe was in fact the largest passenger airline in Europe. We flew 190 flights, in this example, from April the 2nd. That was almost as the double number compared to Lufthansa and Qatar. And we also had more flights than SAS. So this is not something we are, well, can say we can be proud of it, but we never hope we will get into this situation anymore. So next slide, please. As well as globally, the Norwegian airline industry, we were first hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, and we will probably be the last sector to recover. However, the Norwegian government has been very supportive up to now. They have financially guaranteed a minimum domestic production the whole period from early March until the end of September. They also made cuts in passenger and older airline related taxes, and this is until October 30th. And on top of that, the Norwegian airlines have also access to 6 billion Norwegian crowns in loans guarantees. However, there are no signs that these measures will be continued. So if you could go to the next slide, Stacey. We expect to have a 35% drop in revenue in 2020. This is more than 1 billion Norwegian crowns, or 100 million pounds. We had at the most 1,000 employees temporarily laid off. That number has been reduced a little bit now, but we are right now on 650 employees who are laid off temporarily. We now produce around 75% of the normal number of flights. That's more than the average in Norway, because SAS and Norwegian, who are the other two major airlines, have less than 50% production compared to a normal situation. We have had and have a solid financial position, but we will now apply for a loan, the government loan, to financially secure our operation well into 2021 and beyond. We have an ambitious plan to renew our fleet, to electrify it, and that will, of course, be that we haven't changed any of our plans, but we need to secure our operation today and next year as well, and to be able to make those investments that will come probably within 7 to 10 years. It is expected that domestic and regional flights will resume first. This is not only in Norway, but in other countries as well. Probably late in 2021, but it all depends on the development of a vaccine. So we had quite a good summer, but we see now in August and the start of September that the demand is going a little bit down. So we are very unsure how this will impact our production now, but we plan at least for a 75% compared to normal number of flights still. So next slide, please. Yes, we have been in this industry for 86 years, and we plan to stay in the industry for the next 86 years. So with that said, I will thank you for the attention and welcome on board.
Thank you very much, Hakon. I'm sure I can have a question or two at the end. And good to see the E2 jet there at the end as well. So thank you for that update. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. When I've been traveling to Stavanger over the last few years myself, I've been watching with keen interest the evolution of Nordic Expo and Nordic Edge that I think is an event and program and show that I would like a lot more people in the UK to know about. So I'm delighted that this year we have Karina from Nordic Edge to share a bit more about this exciting opportunity. Karina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to hear your excitement and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I would like to, like the last couple of days, we've heard a lot of talks about transition and the green shift. And that's basically much of the reason for our existing. So I would like to tell you a little bit about what we do and who we are and see if there's any interest in collaborating. We're always looking to connect with partners both regionally and far abroad. So if you want to change the slide, Stacey. Thank you. A brief history. We came about in 2015. And the reason for that is a lot of the pre-existing conditions and opportunities that we have here in Stavanger and in the region. The city at the time had just become a lighthouse city together with Manchester and Eindhoven. Lyse, one of our owners, we're a non-profit and we're owned by 11 partners here in the region. They had developed a vast fiber optic network, which has now become national, and as many probably are aware, is on its way to the UK as well. And then we also have the high level of competence and technology from the oil and gas sector, which is interesting to look at how can be used into new markets. So we started with, in a matter of months, the first Nordic Edge Expo and Conference came about. It was about 500 people, and Smart City Conference were built up on partners from the Nordics presenting their expertise and know-how on how our cities are developing. We grew quite quickly, so the next year there were about 2,000 attendees, and then we have had about 4,500 to 5,000 attendees from 40 to 50 countries in recent years. And we're very pleased that it's a 50-50 divide between the public and private sector, with the cities now in demand for new solutions, improving services for their citizens, and the solution providers there showing what they have to offer. And I think one of the key, or a few key reasons for this rapid growth in our Expo and Conference is because there is great interest in the smart city space. There's a lot of opportunity there. I think it's estimated to be like $1 trillion market. So there's very much happening there. There's also widespread interest in the Nordic take on smart cities because it's very citizen-centered, focusing on how to improve the cities on behalf of the citizens, making it better places to live and work. And if you want to change the slide, Stacey. Thank you. In parallel to our Expo and conference, we were recognized as the Smart City Innovation Cluster in the Norwegian Cluster Program. And we're also on the verge of building a new innovation center here in the region. I'll touch a little bit upon that a bit later as well. But what we essentially do is connect the private sector, the public sector, drive project calls, see what opportunities there are for testing and implementing new solutions. And we're always very keen to learn what they do elsewhere as well. And you can change the slide, please. Yeah. So briefly about our smart city cluster, because we recognize that here in Norway we are a fairly small market, but when we work together across the Nordics, we're more a strength in our masses. And the cities here, they collaborate on many different levels, and it's really interesting to see. They have this motto of borrow and steal with pride and fail fast. So they are very forward-leaning, they're eager, they want to try and test something new. If it doesn't work in one city, let's not do it in the next city. So there's a great exchange in that. And we're also taking that with us into new regions. We've had a conference, an exhibition in Asia. Just before, I saw there was somebody from Houston attending. Just before summer, we had a event together with Team Norway, which Kidde mentioned in Houston as well. So more on a smaller scale events, but it's part of taking kind of the Norwegian brand or the Nordic brand with us to new markets. And if you want to change the slide. I think one great or interesting example of using the competence and the technology from the gas and oil sector into new markets is a company here called Blue Logic. They won the innovation prize at ONS just this week for a subsea ROV charging port. And we're together with the cities here talking with the same company because they've also developed this on a city level for parking electrical scooters, like a charging dock for electrical scooters. And especially here in Norway, there's a lot of discussion and debate about these scooters. The influx has created chaos in many sense in the city picture. So it's one initiative worth trying to see, will this be a solution for having more controlled where you park them? And so one thing that's being tested now. I just put together one slide to kind of show some examples of other projects that we do. The top right there is sensors being put down in the city to control or monitor wastewater, cutting costs for maintenance services that they can go to a place where needed rather than having to go around and checking if something needs to be done. We hosted the Nordic Pavilion at European Utility Week with partners from the Nordic countries last year. And we're also testing autonomous vehicles, and I guess you're well familiar with the conditions we have here with steep hills and harsher climates. So testing autonomous buses, other solutions is something that we're very keen to be able to contribute with here as well. So if you want to change. As I mentioned, we've been expanding to some degree, at least internationally, with our event in China last year. That was a week of knowledge exchange between the Nordics and Asia, and we brought with us about 100 representatives from politicians, smart city officials, or city officials, I should say, and private companies to China. There was full conference days, and there were site visits and learning from each other and how we approach and what kind of initiatives that we have. We were supposed to go to the US in March. We had the program ready for Asia in April of this year, but I guess we all know how that's gone. But as soon as travel restrictions allow, we'll be continuing this work. If you want to change. Another initiative that we have is our new innovation center. It's a physical building that's in the making here in Stavanger. It's going to be a co-working space, meeting place for different sectors. It's also going to have lab facilities for IoT, dashboard panels, and lots of different facilities for testing. And the idea is that it's a physical building, but it's also our toolbox in our cluster, where we have the network and the resources to take an idea to market through testing and implementing as well. We're building this together with partners here in Stavanger, but also with Microsoft and Tietoevry are part of this project. So we'll be ready next year, but we've already started accelerated programs and things like that through our Nordic Edge Innovations. Okay, change. If you want to change, Stacey. Thank you. I just brought one little, the last slide, there was a little teaser of what Nordic Edge Expo looked like last year. It was quite a different event than what we're planning this year, but it was, when we now decided to go digital, we got ambitious. And we are now going to go on the 23rd of September. We are broadcasting live from 6 different cities, different smart city themes and topics. If you want to change. Yeah. So we have our main stage here in Stavanger, starting at 9 a.m. in the morning. And then at 10 o'clock, they will log on, or they will start broadcasting from Brussels, Copenhagen, Helsingborg in Sweden, and Oslo. And we're also coming in from Brussels. So the overall theme for the conference is Rethink Normality, but each stage will have its different topic. So in Blocksub, in Copenhagen, our partner there, Blocksub and the Smart City Cluster in Denmark, they've put together a program about smart healthy cities. In Finland, they're looking at energy efficient cities and the needs for both production and distribution. And in Brussels, there's going to be a full session on the Green Deal and the Climate Neutral Cities Initiative. And in addition to that, I know some of you know Lina Grönhaug, that you met her at least here in Stavanger, Brett. And she's also working on a project called Know-How EdTech, which is a 3-day conference for teachers. So that was just briefly and in short about who we are and what we do. If you do think it's interesting, if you would like to connect and learn more about us, then please let us know.
Thank you very much, Karina. And I certainly will be participating in the event later this month in September. And what we'll do is make sure that everyone that signed up for the 2-day sessions today and yesterday receives information on that tomorrow in our follow-up notes. So I think there's a lot of potential there. Okay, well, that's all some great speakers today and some great questions coming in. So Stacey, without further ado, I've just got one quick note before we jump to the Q&A. Obviously, we've been talking all about Norway this week. We have done digital gateways earlier this year to Guyana in Latin America and to Houston. Our next gateway is Abu Dhabi, and the dates there, if you want to save the dates, on the 10th and 11th of November. And we'll send you all information on that as well to register for anyone that's interested in Abu Dhabi. We're now back to Norway and UK. And If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. I'll start working through some of them just now.
Well, I can make a start because I did keep one eye on the questions coming in. So the first one, or the first couple, have actually come in from Paul Crichton. So hi, Paul. Haven't seen you for a little while. Nice to see you on here. So the first question from Paul is for Kira. In your experience on the Norwegian side of the North Sea, have you found companies making a transition to renewables have formed new divisions or continue to use their oil and gas branding to promote their renewables offering?
Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest. I can't answer clear cut on it, but I can offer my view. I don't think you have many companies left branding themselves oil and gas. Oil and gas today is seen as dirty, and most companies, they want to distance themselves from that. So they're using energy, and energy is a much better word anyway because it's everything. Equinor, they changed the name also because they want to be an all-round energy provider, and also in the renewables and also other sectors. So there's a lot of motivations to change. The only thing, my personal view, it's shame that this sector, oil and gas sector, has been being accused of greenwashing or whatever they try to do and attempt to do in the green and the good way. Sometimes they're being they're not being believed, and then you have the people coming and say they don't mean it, they just do it on the marketing purposes. I don't think so. I think energy is a better word than oil and gas, and oil and gas companies and suppliers, they do the change because they want to make a difference. I'm not sure if that was good enough answer, but that's
I was just going to ask on that question in terms of the structuring of how people trade. You might have some thoughts on that in terms of that question, in terms of, do they use their current subsidiary, do they set up a new subsidiary?
I think I don't want to dodge a question, but it depends what you're doing. So some companies have set up new subsidiary companies. Some might divested completely and put them into sister companies. So it depends what you're trying to do. But there is the move, I mean, from oil and gas into energy. And then I see energy getting clean. So that's a sort of transition which is going to happen quickly. So we end up probably shortly not having this debate. But from a marketing perspective, it depends on the people you're actually selling to. And it also depends on your investors.
Okay, thank you for that. I would just like to say a quick thank you. Quite a few on from Houston online just now, and special thanks because I know it's an early start for them. So Lorna, Lance, Andy, and anyone else from Houston, thank you for getting up so early to join us to talk about Norway. And I know my good friend Lorna in Houston has just pointed out the sister city relationship between all three cities, Aberdeen, Stavanger, and Houston. And I know from touring around Lance's district in Katy, it has got a lot of Norwegian companies. So there's a lot of links here beyond even just the Aberdeen Norway gateway, which is great to see. Stacey, do you want to take the next question?
Yeah, I will ask Paul's next question, which is to Ewan. So I know you've just inputted another one, but this one's for you as well. So what do you think is making BP and Total so cautious on potential oil price being $60 max, when all market pointers suggest higher than that, in some cases up to $100?
So I don't really know what is in the minds of the executives in BP and Total. But my guess, having seen the price over a long period of time, is that we simply don't know what risks are out there. We don't know what politics are out there. But what we do know is that things change very, very fast. So they're taking a prudent view. And over the next few years, they're taking a balanced view, which their investors probably are expecting them to take.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a few coming in from Idel. Idel, apologies if I pronounced your name wrong. Feel free to come on and let me know if I pronounced it wrong or not, because if not, I'm going to keep calling you Idel. So, okay, the first question. The COVID-19 has had devastating effects on the aviation industry. So, Håkon, this one I presume is to you. Where do you see your direct competition arising from within the EU as each country is financially supporting their own carriers?
Yes, that's true. We see that many of the traditional flag carriers have received a huge amount of money from the governments to keep them alive. I don't think they will be the toughest competition. I believe that we will see the toughest competition from low-cost carriers like Wizz Air, for example. They are very aggressive in the market. We think they have a plan to go quite broad into many of the European countries. We are a regional airline, and we haven't seen that many bankruptcy yet in the industry. But we have Flybe, who went bankrupt earlier this year, and also Bra in Sweden, who have now protection, bankrupt protection. So we believe that the winter will be quite interesting. We believe we will see some, maybe there will be some airlines who start talking to each other, with each other, maybe joint ventures. We don't know. I think the winter is just, the winter will be only to survive, and the strongest will survive, and they will survive. They will come quite strong after this, come out quite strong.
Thank you. So she has a follow-on question, and I'm just going to clarify first of all, just so that we can set the scene a little bit. So Adele works for LV Shipping, so steering the services and value add since the crisis has been very challenging. So they're relentlessly striving to ensure logistics services are competitive and innovative. So that's why she's so interested. So her question is, how has your airline mitigated against rising costs during these challenging times?
Yes, we are just in the middle of that. We need to of course, go over cost. We are a Norwegian-based airline with a Norwegian cost level, which is quite high compared to other countries. And so we are now in talk with our unions. We have a cost-cutting program, which will be rolled out this Easter, this fall, I mean. But of course there are costs that we cannot reduce. I mean, we see the oil price now rising. That's positive on the one side because of the industry. However, for us, it's a quite it may have an impact on our cost, and we are also in a weak currency. The Norwegian crown is very vulnerable, and that has been very weak for a long time. So there are things that we cannot do anything about, but of course there will be cost cutting made. But we are also in discussions with the government about the taxes, because the taxes, flying domestic in Norway is quite expensive because the taxes are quite high. So that's not only for Widerøe, but it's also for our competitors, Norwegian and SAS as well.
Thank you. And I would just like to add, having had a 17-year history as a travel agent before I was ever doing what I'm doing now, I have very strong feelings about how the travel industry is and how it's going. I enjoy flying, and I really, really liked your slides with some of the airport codes because I was testing my knowledge. I still recognize some of them.
That's good.
Okay, that is the end of the questions in the chat. If anybody has any more, if you want to either pop them in, or as it's just, as long as not everybody's talking at once, if you want to put your mute button off and you can ask the question. But I'll just...
I'd like to ask a Widerøe question to Håkon. I know that throughout the pandemic and throughout the current crisis, the one airline that kept a direct link between the UK and Norway was Widerøe. even when British Airways were no longer servicing Norway and Oslo. So it's been a real lifeline service there, and presuming hacking to the freight. The second part of my question is, where can we? I had the pleasure of flying the E2 jet last year, when you became the world's launch customer for it. And where can we see it currently and in the near future?
Yes, we were the only airline flying to not only Aberdeen but UK, and we didn't have that many passengers, but we flew because our largest customers asked us to do that, because it was crucial for the industry to have airline have flights.
A lifeline service, really, isn't it?
Yes. So we had one flight per day from Bergen to Aberdeen, and it was quite crucial. Not, as you said, not only for passenger, but as for cargo as well, because it's quite critical that it will be almost devastating if it was not any sort of transport between the two countries. Now the E2, yes, we have flown it. We have have production on Aberdeen with the E2. It flies now mostly in domestic Norway between Bergen and the northern part of Norway. Also Bergen, Stavanger, and occasionally also on the Aberdeen flights.
Thanks for that, Håkon. I look forward to flying back with Widerøe in the near future back to Norway. Can I ask a question, Stacey, to Karina, please, from Nordic Edge? And Karina, you've had quite a global audience building up with both Nordic Expo and Nordic Edge. And I know from when I was last in Stavanger, it's become a global offering. Presumably you'd like to see more engagement from the United Kingdom, Scotland, Aberdeen, as seeing a larger presence from the UK?
Absolutely. It's, like I mentioned, always interesting to learn from others. And I think that's part of the reason with the event as well, that it is the knowledge from other and experiences from other regions, other countries, what they're doing, that is such a unique value with it, that you meet up with so many different, both the cities and organizations. And we've had, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I think it was between 40 to 50 countries that have been represented annually at our event. And it's all our co-organizers who are involved in the program, which also increases the international focus of it. And with the market being in so much happening in the smart city market and the opportunity that's there, that doesn't have any country borders.
Okay, I know. Okay, that's good. And I'd just like to ask the Provost to say a few words on his thoughts on smart cities and clean tech and all those good green and energy transition piece.
Excuse me, I missed. Oh,
sorry, it was the.
I knew, Karina.
I didn't hear the beginning of the question, so sorry.
Sorry, I'd like to ask the Provost to say his thoughts on the smart city piece in terms of Aberdeen and carbon capture, energy transition, digital, and the whole topic of the smart cities.
Yeah, that's quite a broad scope there, Brett. I think that how Aberdeen has been described as this technology heart of Scotland, and I think that we would hope to be in the forefront, everything to do with energy. Those that were at the event yesterday will know that we have very, very ambitious plans on energy transition. And I think the key thing for us is that these are very long term. So we started thinking about this a very long time ago. Our hydrogen strategy is, I think, about 20 years since we started having a hydrogen strategy. And we now have I think, probably the broadest range of hydrogen vehicles of anywhere in the world. But we're aware, you know, you have to run very, very fast to keep up. And something that maybe interests Karina and our colleagues is that we are unusual in a European setting. We have a very, very small public sector. We are overwhelmingly a private sector city, which you can maybe tell in the turnout for these sorts of events. We have a lot of companies and we have a very tiny, but therefore the drive for efficiency is very, very high because our amount of money, we're more, often say that we're halfway to being an American city in terms of the shape of our economy, so that the pressures on the public sector to be efficient are very, very, you know, very exacting. And so we were very early movers in quite a lot of the digital things for practical reasons, not just, you know, envisioning the future, but the challenges to us delivering services with a very small budget have really driven us that way. So we are maybe of some interest for other sort of people with different backgrounds to look at that and to speak about ourselves. But we certainly hope, again, the other thing, again, in terms of collaborations, we're probably the British city that is showing the greatest enthusiasm for collaboration with European cities, and of course going beyond, because we've got our colleagues here from Houston, and I'm sure other places that we're linked to through World Energy Cities as well. So great to hear colleagues from Houston as well.
Thank you, Lord Provost. Your thoughts on Aberdeen and that Nordic Expo or Nordic Edge Link. I think we've got another question, Stacey, for Karina.
We do, yes. So, so this is from Ian Masson. Hi, Ian. So, Karina, what do you see as the biggest challenges for a transition towards smart cities, and what support do you require from companies to manage this?
I think one very important element of it is that there's this drive for more efficiency. Cities need to cut costs. Technology is an entry point to doing that, but that we don't forget the people, that it's supposed to be something that technology needs to be for the purpose of the people who need it, and for the smart with the heart, which is our slogan, that the focus is the human-centered all the way. And the question, that's one thing. Another thing is for the cities also to take the lead in driving this innovation, that they take charge and work together with the companies, that we accomplish a great degree of public-private partnerships, which I also think that we're going to definitely see the need for in the upcoming 100 climate neutral cities proposal that's coming out of the European Commission in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I think this is as good a time to end. I'm sure Brett will just have a couple of words before we go. I just want to remind everybody, please, to have a look at the group. We will put all the presentations in the group, so you'll be able to access them there and be able to connect and continue the conversations. And I will be sending out we did have some more people join us just before the call today, so welcome if you're still on. So we will send out the final delegate list tomorrow with everybody, so that you can see who was here, and if you need to connect anybody, you can reach out through the group on LinkedIn, or if you want to ask Brett or myself, if we know them, we'll try and help you with that introduction. So thank you from me.
So thank you from me as well. Thank you, Stacey, for moderating. Thank you for our speakers today. Thank you to Lord Provost for joining us both days. We appreciate it. And for everyone taking the time to be with us today. And yesterday, as Stacey says, we'll send out as much resource as possible tomorrow as follow-on toolkits. So thank you, and have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.